Ruchem Aboim B'Shem Egen Shir Torah. Mrs. Boston, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's shir. Tonight we have the covered to have with us once again Rabbi Zev Cohen, Rabbi Yeshurun, Rosh Choshen Mishpat in Chicago. This opportunity we'd like to wish the Rav a Mazel Tov on the occasion of a bris of an Einikel today. Sachi D'Shnachas, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. We'd like to give a big yeshikach to Mr. and Mrs. David Dax for sponsoring tonight's shir, the covered Rav Cohen Shlita. To have the great schus of sponsoring a share, call Irgun Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. And I have the covered to corner of Cohen for tonight's Rosh on how do we stay sane while the world goes down the drain. Rav Cohen.
Yeah, thank you. I'll get it. Thank you. Oh, that's it. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Okay, I'm not going to use it. I'll see what happens. Okay. I'm going to leave it on the table. Just if I need it. Okay, everybody, say first thing I want to say is I did not make up the title of tonight's shir. There's something along the lines. I gave a freedom of Yirgun Shirei Torah to make up the title. Very, very creative title. We'll see what happens with the title. That's the first thing I want to say. Second thing about it is Paislim B'Chlei Aksanya, Yirgun Shirei Torah for what they're doing for Klal Yisrael, and for the Boston Beis Medrash, which I've said many times that you can take a look now at the book that came out in the Boston Rebbe. You can see that I meant what I said, that we're connected to my mother's family, connected to the Boston Rebbe, my father, Olav Shalom. Then I want to say also, Baruch Hashem, I have a brother here, a brother-in-law here, a cousin here, friends here, chavrusas here. I thank you all, and I obviously don't know who's online, but I'm welcoming all of them as well. Okay, now the first thing we have to do, besides saying, and a nephew is here as well, besides saying that this is a beautiful Beis Medrash, it's mamish beautiful, gorgeous since the last time I was here. But I really want to begin by saying, Hoy L'Shem Ki Tov Ki Lo Chazli. Meaning that last year we weren't here. At least I wasn't here. I don't know if anybody else was here, but whatever was going on, it was not the same as it is now. We all can remember back to the tumults, and whenever you come to a point in which somebody greeted me in the hall that we're back, that we're back, and we should be zeicha that. Should be only simchas, Rabbi say, and no more tzoros, and we should be zeicha b'mheira la'oiroi. Okay, now we're going to start off with something which is in Yonah the Yoma, which we're going to use as the platform to discuss tonight's topic, and that is that there's a Mishnah. It's a very famous Mishnah. It's in Yonah the Yoma. It's at the end of Maseches Tainis. Hey Dvarim Yeru. 5 things happened on Tisha B'Av. And one of the things that happened on Tisha B'Av is Beitar. Beitar was destroyed, one of the 5 things that happened. Beitar, for those people who don't know, was a city that after Churban Bayesheni, there was hope that Klal Yisrael was going to come back with Bar Kochva, and Beitar was the place of his stronghold, and Beitar was destroyed. 52 years after the destruction of Bayesheni, whatever the amount of years were, and that was the end. That was the end. That was the Churban. And that's one of the 5 things that took place on Tisha B'Av. Now, we don't know exactly. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Yidden were killed in Beitar. Now, the end of the Mishnah, in the same Mishnah, in Tainus says, L'hoy Yom Tovim L'Yisrael. L'hoy Yom Tovim L'Yisrael. The days that were incredible Yom Tovim for Klal Yisrael were Yom HaKippurim and Tu B'Av. What happened on Tu B'Av? So the Gemara lists many things that took place. One of the things that the Gemara lists was that the people in Beitar, the bodies did not decompose, lo yisrichu, and also they were finally brought to Kfura. They were brought to Kfura. It was a yontif. Now, we're going to talk about this, but let's just I just want to give a drop of background for a second. I don't know how familiar everybody is, and I don't want to be that graphic, but the bodies were not destroyed. The bodies, they didn't decompose. In 1992 in Shul, we had a Jew, a Yid, who was a veteran of the Six-Day War. So he came to talk 25 years since the Six-Day War. He came to talk. He was not in Yerushalayim. He was in the desert. And he told us, again, I apologize, but you'll see why I feel it has to be said. He said, when they killed an Arab in the desert in the middle of the summer in June, within 15 minutes, the body was unrecognizable. We're not going into any more detail. They had to bulldoze all the bodies and cover them immediately. It was impossible. It was impossible. So here we're talking Beitar, Tisha B'Av, middle of the summer. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people were killed. It became a yontif that the bodies did not decompose. Now, what happened as a result? When this nest took place, the bodies didn't decompose. The Gemara says in Brachas, and the Gemara says there in Tainus, that they made a bracha. There's a bracha that we say very, very often. It's the fourth bracha of benching. Hatoiva meitiv. Made a bracha hatoiva meitiv. Now, people in Shul are listening on the live stream. In Shul we have a shir. Baruch Hashem, we have many shurim. One of the shurim we have in Shul is, let's learn to daven. Let's learn to daven. We learn the siddur. We've been doing this for, 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, I don't remember how many years. Right now we're doing benching. So I'm in my house a few weeks ago preparing for shir. And we're up to the bracha, hatoiva meitiv. So I'm in my 7th decade in this world, Rabbi say, and I've embarrassed myself before. Publicly, I'll embarrass myself again. I'm sitting in my house, I'm preparing shir, and I say, hatoiva meitiv. Toiv shel esrichu, or meitiv shel, they were brought to Kfura. What in the world does that have to do with benching? The first bracha of benching, Moshe Rabbeinu, because we got the mun in the middle. Second bracha in benching is Yeshua, because we got Eretz Yisrael. Third bracha in benching is Shleima and David, because we got Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash. And they're all deraisa. How it works out deraisa by Yeshua and Shleima and David is a good kasha. They're all deraisas. Now we have a fourth bracha, which is the Rabbanan, which is made hundreds of years after Shleima and David, and it's made because of because the Shaloi Yisrichu. Not only that, but it wasn't all of Klal Yisrael. The mun was for all of Klal Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael was all of Klal Yisrael. HaBeis HaMikdash and Yerushalayim was for all of Klal Yisrael. As a matter of fact, Reb Chaim asks, is that we say, Hatoiv HaMeitiv Lakoil. He says, what's Lakoil? It wasn't Lakoil. Chaim asks that Kash in his siddur. So what's happening here? So Baruch Hashem, I couldn't believe it. That I'm benching for all these decades, and I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by myself alone in my house. I go to shir, so I'm embarrassed by it. I'm embarrassed myself here also. What's benching? What is this? So I call him a chaver of mine. So he tells me that the Meshech Chochmah asks this kasha. The Meshech Chochmah in Parshas Eikev. Bashek Ivanti asks this kasha. Asks this kasha. Eikev is where benching is. He wants to know what is this bracha? It's a bracha prati. It's not a national bracha. But then he asks another kasha. Also something to think about. Unbelievable kasha. The fourth bracha benching is hatoiva meitiv. It's a long bracha. But really all the bracha is hatoiva meitiv with a lot of shvachim for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the bracha be'ikar is hatoiva meitiv. That's what Chazal call it, hatoiva meitiv. So he wants to know, how come there's a bracha hatoiva meitiv, the fourth bracha benching? There's also a bracha hatoiva meitiv on yayin. What's the shaykhis? What's the shaykhis? That's the Meshech Chochmah's second kasha. Okay, we're going to leave this. We're going to come back to it. Bez Hashem Yisbarach. Okay, I'd like to now start off the shir. I like to be mavar a number of things, but I want to say two agdamas. Agdama number one is we're going to talk a lot about the difference between goyim and yidden. But I want to say clearly, this is not a shir about being disrespectful to goyim. We have to be respectful to Etzelim Elokim. It says in the Mishnah, Chavav Adam Shniver B'Tzelim. But I would like to talk about the fact we do say lahavdil bein Yisrael Yamim, and there's a tremendous nafkamina. That's one. The second thing is I got rishus, and I want to say that I'm apologizing. Perhaps maybe apologizing is too strong of a word. I'm going to be talking about things tonight that maybe I don't know who's watching or who's listening. I only see the people here in front of me. We're going to be talking about some subjects tonight which might be a little bit sensitive or a little bit delicate, and some people may not appreciate that we're even going to be talking about them. So I apologize to anybody up front. Those are my two agdamas. Okay, let's begin. There's a Rashi. Everybody knows this Rashi. Rashi's in Parshas Chukas. Right at the beginning of Parshas Chukas. A very famous Rashi. Rashi says, in Tois Chukas HaTorah, look Rashi like this. I once walked to one of my Rebbeim's houses on Shabbos afternoon, and we learned this Rashi. Lefisha Satan v'umas ha'olam, moinen es Yisrael. The Satan and the umas ha'olam, moinen. What does the word moinen mean? Anybody know what the word moinen means? This, what? To what? To be Toveya? No. What's that? Admonishes. Moinen really is from the word oino. It's really from the word oino. That's what the Mefarshim Rashi say. Another thing I only found out this year. Moinen. I always wanted to know what the word moinen was. So this year I found out moinen. It's Lashon oino. You know what it means in English? It means abusive talk. You're mocking somebody. You're abusing him with words. So the Goyim say like this. The Satan was home say, "Ma mitzvah is like, what is this mitzvah? Uma tam yeshbo. What is the reason? Mitayas that tameim, the tameim become. We all the tameim become Torah. The Torah become tameim. What is this mitzvah? Lefikach, kosav chuka. Sakrashi chuka. Gzeirahi milafanai. Ein lecha rishus laharachara. It's a gzeira. These words we're going to talk about now for several minutes. Gzeirahi milafanai. It's a gzeira. It's a gzeira. Ein lecha rishus laharachara. You can't challenge this gzeira. Ein lecha rishus laharachara. Ein lecha rishus laharachara. Unbelievable. So, learning Daf Yomi, I'm telling you again, Rabbi Say, the people listening in Shul, it's all Siyata D'Shmaya. I'm just a recipient. I get perks of Siyata D'Shmaya. Okay, so comes Daf Yomi, Daf Samach Zayin. Samach Zayin and Yuma. What does it say Daf Samach Zayin and Yuma, Rabbi Say? Gemara says like this. The Gemara gives a list. A list. Chazer, Shatnis, Chalitza, Mitzoira, Sar Mishtaleach. I'm going to use this example a few times. You ever sitting on a plane, somebody says to you, can you explain to me about that Sar Mishtaleach? Well, what are you Jews doing throwing something off a cliff? What is that about? Could you please explain to me chalitza? Spitting, shoe, foot. What are you doing? What are you doing? Shatness. What are you doing? What is it? What is it? So Gemara says about all these things, Gzeirahi milafanai, bein l'cha rishus la'achar. That's Lashon of Gemara, just like Rashi. That's where Rashi's coming from, the Chazal. Then the same week, we have a shir in the shul once a week. We're learning chelik. Those people who like to know what goes on in shul, one of the things we're learning chelik. We're on Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Met Aleph. We've been learning chelik for the last 23 years. We average about a blot a year. They say people go slow. A blot about a blot a year. What's the Gemara saying at the bottom of Kuf Yud Aleph Met Aleph? Gemara discusses Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. What's what Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Avram Avinu says, I gave him to Israel. He couldn't find a place to bury his wife. V'lo hira, he didn't ask, he didn't think about what I said. He didn't think about it. Lo hira achami doisai. Yitzchak, I gave him to Israel. He couldn't find a well. Yaakov gave him to Israel. He couldn't find a place to pitch his tent. Gemara says, and all of them it says, and they were not mahar achami doisai. Rashi brings it down in Chumash in the Parsha Shemais. Lo hira achami doisai. Then, in the same week, we're learning, we have a Kolel Biker. So in the Kolel Biker, we have two Kolel Bikers actually. We're learning Baba Kama. And we're learning also, we have two Kolel Bikers, and one we're learning Baba Kama, and one we're learning Hilchas Dayonis. Okay, and they both happen to intersect about the following Shiloh. What can a Dayan do nowadays? They're judging what can a Dayan do, what he can't do. It's in Siman Aleph, and then throughout Shulchan Aruch, there are different Shilohs. So in Siman Shin Tzadik, the Gemara discusses something that everybody who ever learned in the yeshiva knows. It's called Tzreiris. Tzreiris is a shalom of a cow. A cow is walking down the street and he kicks something and the pebbles go flying out. What's the halach? So the Gemara says Tzreiris is halacha l'maishem misinai. Halacha l'maishem misinai. Zok desma Siman Shin Tzadik Sif Cotton Tess. That Tzreiris really, it's very hard to understand because is it regel or is it keren? The cow is using its foot, and it's walking in normative weight. That should be regular. But the Maisi only pays Chatzi Nezek. That's really Keren. So the Gemara says, Mechaber says, it's halacha l'meish misinai. Zok tesma, halacha l'meish misinai. Gzeirahim ilafonai ve'ein l'cha rishus l'harachareh. Pella. That's the pshat. The Sma says in Tzeres. When the Gemara says that it's called halacha l'meish misinai, the Sma says, Gzeirahim ilafonai ve'ein rishus l'harachareh. I want to tell you what it means. I once had a plumber in our house. Plumber came to the house. Whatever was broken, I don't remember what was broken. So the plumber says, after he finishes the job, I remember I was out in the back porch. He finished the job. He's about to leave. He says to me, are you Jewish? I said, how could you tell? How could you tell? Are you Orthodox? I said, yeah, how could you tell? So, okay. So he said, I want to ask you a question. Okay, what's the question? How come Jews don't eat pig? He wasn't mocking me. He was just inquisitive. I don't know what happened. I could have spoken, put the words in my mouth. I said to him, obedience. Obedience. So he looks at me and he says, you know, that's the first time somebody explained something to me and it makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, obedience. Somebody told me in shul obedience, maybe OB really comes from the word oved and evet. I don't know, you have to go check it out with a linguist, where the word comes from. Obedience. Then, my brothers here, maybe some of you also know that, that the Massachusetts-Connecticut border, there's something called Sturbridge Village. What's Sturbridge Village? Maybe some of you once went there with your family. Sturbridge Village is a town from 1820, an entire town. They flew it in, the buildings, the whole place, it's an entire town. The people act there as though they're living in the 1820s. I love this stuff. I love it. I love it. So I walk into it. My family doesn't like it as much as I do. That's why we don't go so much anymore. I love it. And walk into a tailor shop. Tailor shop. I love it because you can learn the halachas of Shabbos. And it's murder. Find out how people lived in the time of the Gemara, because it's basically the same thing. Anyway, I walk into the tailor shop. So they say to me, we'd like to buy a coat. So I said, yeah, okay, what kind of coat you have? They said, we have Lindsay Woolseys. I says, what's a Lindsay Woolsey? So they say to me like this: wool is warm, but wool can't hold its form. Linen gives no warmth, but linen holds its form. So the coats of the 1820s were Lindsay Woolseys, half linen, half wool. The linen kept the wool in shape, and the wool gave the person warmth. So I said, I can't wear them. Why not? Why can't you wear a Lindsay Woolsey? I said, because the Torah says you can't wear a Lindsay Woolsey. Well, why not? Why not? Okay, here we are. Okay, here we are. Now, I like to say it like this. My frame of reference to the world, Baruch Hashem, I drive from my house to shul, shul to my house. My wife says, Sadekis, I come out, never go shopping. I have no interaction except when I go to the airport. I go to the airport, then the whole world's in the airport. The whole world's in the airport. So I'd like to talk about the airport, about Gzeirhi Milofanai, Bein Rishus Ha'acharel. Okay, I'm not mocking anybody. I want to talk about the airport. I've been flying for, I'm afraid to say how many years, more than 50 years. I've been flying in planes. I'm going, not flying the planes, going Boston to New York to Boston, and Boston, Chicago to New York to Chicago. So you're in the airport, and somebody says like this didn't happen to me, but I'm just telling you what you're Jewish? Yeah, I'm Jewish. Could you explain to me why you don't have a tattoo? Maybe you could explain to me why you do have a tattoo. Now, I said I've been flying for 50 years, which is probably, maybe that's more years than some people in this room are alive. But when I grew up, nobody had a tattoo. Nobody had a tattoo. For those people who became here, there was one person who had a tattoo. If you want to say who it is, you can say who it is. Popeye. The only person that had a tattoo was Popeye. Nobody else had a tattoo. And those people don't know who Popeye is, Baruch Hashem. Good for you. That's it, finished. Nobody else had a tattoo. The Ganze Welt has tattoos. What happened? The whole world's wearing tattoos. So why do you have a tattoo? Men, women, everybody has tattoos. So why don't you have a tattoo? Abba, Ima, why can't I have a tattoo? Why can't I have a tattoo? One of the members of the Mayetzes, I met with him this past week. He told me he's on a plane, and the person's, lifted up his luggage, a Yid, lifted up his luggage. He was wearing a polo shirt, and the polo shirt went up a little, and right across his chest, Yud, K, Vav, K. That's a shout in the Gemara already. That's already a shout in the Gemara. So this Rosh Hashiva, this Gadol B'Yisrael said to, he was Jewish, he said, what are you doing? She says, I want to get closer to God. The guy meant it seriously. He didn't know. I want to get closer to God. So I put his name on my chest. Okay, let's go next. I was in the airport just a few weeks ago, and I get there 5 a.m. to the airport, and I have a 6 a.m. flight. He told me my flight's canceled. Why is it canceled? They can't tell me. No direct flights all day to Chicago. I said, I'm flying 40 years to Chicago. There's no direct flights. Go check on your phone. So I could have said to her, I don't have a smartphone. You don't have a smartphone? Why don't you have a smartphone? Well, my rabbi told me I should not be too involved in the internet. Well, who's your rabbi? I'm my rabbi. Okay, right, let's say that didn't happen. But who are you? You come from Mars, the moon? What kind of human being are you? Don't you know that you must be connected 24/7 in your pocket? So what's the shot with us? And even the people who do, filter. What's a filter mean? What filter? What a filter? You go to a rabbi, yes, you should get a filter. Why you people are crazy, right? Meinen. What's with you people? Okay, and the next thing, I'm saying this with a lot of sensitivity now. A lot of sensitivity. Go to the airport. This is the time I was in LA. I'm in LA, I'm taking a red eye. My flight's called for 12, midnight. Get to the airport, and if you ever been to the airport, return the car. Baruch Hashem, I got to the desk. I got at 11:07. Okay, so I still have time to check my bags, and I was at a priority desk. 3 people are behind the desk. Each one has a customer. I'm next in line. I figured, no problem. 3 people. One of them is going to be finished. By 11:15, I can't check my luggage anymore. 11:07, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I go to the guy. I said, listen, you're not checking my luggage. He said, oh, well, we'll let you check the luggage. Well, what's going on? What's taking so long? The people in front of me are in line. They're checking in their dogs. Now, I don't know if you've flown on planes recently. Every flight, I don't know how many flights I've flown on since we call PC and PS, post-corona, post-Shavuos. I mean, whatever, back to regular schedules. We're flying in for Simchas or Yeshurun. Every flight, I think 70% of the flights, dogs. That flight, a dog was 1 row behind us. I, Baruch Hashem, fell asleep. My wife was up the entire flight. The dog barked the entire flight. A guy got up in the middle of the flight and said, I mean, it was on a different flight also with dog. A guy got in the middle of the flight, okay, you can't control a baby, but control your dog. It was like unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Rav just told me in Chicago, we had a meeting, he said he was on a flight, 6 dogs on the flight. 6 dogs on the flight. I understand service animals, I understand people need it, I understand the whole thing. Person's on the flight, instead of keeping the animal in the little plastic cage and put it under the seat, this lady decides she's going to keep the animal, holding the animal. She fell asleep, the dog crawled out, crawled up a guy sitting across the aisle, licked the guy's face while he was sleeping. I'll tell you the truth, I know a lot of people that get a heart attack right away, they would die. We just die. What's the pshat? Where are we? I'm going to say something else that's a little bit more sensitive. You get off the airport, you get off the plane. I don't know how recently you're flying. I'm talking now about Chicago, I'm talking Newark, talking LaGuardia for sure, the new airport in LaGuardia, in Los Angeles. You get off the men's bathroom, women's bathroom, pet relief area. There's no joke. That's the airports nowadays. Men's bathroom, women's bathroom, pet relief area. Okay, now I'm going to get to the most sensitive subject. And this I'm going to say only b'derech remez. Then there's another issue, and you can't even talk about this issue. I'm saying in a public forum. I'm going to talk about it, even though it's there's an issue. Letters, I'm talking about LGBT. I don't want to. If you know what it means, I'm not going to explain it, right? LGBTQ, right? There's a whole world out there. Now I want to tell you like this, and don't say to me that I know that you want to say that I understand something. I say don't talk about it. I will tell you the truth. If you don't want to talk about it, then never take your children to an airport and don't fly anywhere. Because in the airport it says like this: men's bathroom, women's bathroom, pet relief room, and then it says gender neutral bathroom. But what is that? I will tell you what it is. Because this is what your kids are going to see, so you might as well just be aware of it right now. This is the universal signal for a man, 2 legs. A woman is a skirt. Then there's a pet relief area, and then there's another bathroom that has a different signal on it of what it stands for, and your children will ask you, what is it? That's what it is. Again, I'm saying this with sensitivity now. I mean that. I'm not joking around, I mean it. A lot of sensitivity out there. A lot of different issues going on out there. And a lot of it is in our oilam. I mean a lot of it. Some of it is in our oilam. That's what we have to tell our children. The Torah said we can't do it. The Torah said we can't do it. Ein rishus lahachareh. That's what it says. And again, I'm saying that with a lot of sensitivity. A lot of sensitivity. It's amazing, Rabbi Zev. Anybody in this room who's more than 50 years old, go back 35 years. Every single thing I just mentioned, all four things, did not exist. They didn't exist. Service dogs on planes. Tattoos. Didn't exist. Internet didn't exist. 35 years ago. And the whole different type of community, it didn't exist. It didn't exist. We're living in a different planet. We're living in a different world. Who would have thought that you need a Rashi to tell us? Now, for the first time, I was ma'ayin, I couldn't believe it. I saw Reb Chaim in his siddur, says that the bodies by Beitar were left outside for 7 years. 7 years. He didn't bring down the Makor in the siddur, and I looked at some of the man Makaimis. Taisus says this. Taisus says this in Psachim, and the Rosh says this in Brachas. 7 years. Now I'm going to be graphic for a moment, and I apologize. For 7 years. Okay? 7 years the bodies were left outside. What did they do with the bodies for 7 years? Taisus says they made a fence with the bodies. They piled up the bodies and they made them into a fence. The blood that came out of the bodies, again, I apologize, this is the Rishonim. The blood that came out of the bodies was used as fertilizer. 7 years. 7 years. You know what happened? The bodies did not decompose. The bodies, lo yisrichu. It's impossible. Hot, cold, animals, it's impossible. It's impossible that the bodies didn't decompose. Lo yisrichu is impossible. But it didn't happen. Lo yisrichu. So after 7 years, lo yisrichu, and finally there was a melech that allowed kfura for all the, he said hundreds of thousands of I don't know, I can't tell you. But they built walls around the krumim. Taisus says they built walls around the krumim. That's why we make katoiva meitiv on yayin, because they did it bedafka around vineyards. But the Meshech Chochmah says a different shot. Meshech Chochmah says a different shot. It's like the Meshech Chochmah like this. It's unbelievable. And a Kadosh Baruch Hu is bekas. And a Kadosh Baruch Hu is punishing us, Rahman al-Islam. In the middle of the punishment, a Kadosh Baruch Hu expresses to us his love. It's not a stira. It's not a stira. It's not a stira. In the middle of his punishment, a Kadosh Baruch Hu says, watch, the bodies won't decompose. It's a ness. What am I doing that for? Because I want to show you, Dr. Meshech Chochmah, that even in the worst sorrow, I'm still with you. Analogous. I'm sure many people are thinking about it right now. Yosef HaTzadik. Rashi says an unbelievable lashon. Yosef HaTzadik is sold into slavery by his brothers. Can anybody think of anything worse than a family? Forget about two brothers not talking to each other, chas v'sholem. They sold their brother as an eved, as a slave, to Mitzrayim, alone. What does it say in Rashi? Unbelievable. It's like Rashi. They sold him, and the caravan was selling, as we all know, besam. V'oma pirsim ha'kosav es masom. V'oidian matan schorim shel tzadikim. Matan schorim shel tzadikim? That's called matan schorim shel tzadikim. So what's the pshat in Rashi? So all the Bali Musa say, that everybody says, the pshat in Rashi is, Yosef HaTzadik is going down to Mitzrayim, who knows what he's thinking of, Baruch Kodsha, who knows what he's thinking of. But his brother sold him. And all of a sudden he sees, instead of tar and pitch, which has an incredible pungent odor, all of a sudden he sees it's besomim. Besomim. It's like Chazal, besomim. Wow. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with me now also. Kodesh Baruch is with me now also. The Yidden saw Lo Yisrichu. The Yidden saw that there was Kvura. The Yidden went to Yavne, and they said in Yavne, what should we do? Look at this Nes. So they made a bracha. Hatoiv HaMeitiv. Hatoiv HaMeitiv, that's a bracha. Hatoiv HaMeitiv, you make a bracha. Hatoiv HaMeitiv. We're bringing good news. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed, maybe millions, and the bodies were then used as fences, but they didn't decompose. Lo Yisrichu. Lo Yisrichu. Aruch HaShulchan says the same thing in Hilchos Bechas Amos and Siman Kuf Pei Tes. Unbelievable. Kadosh Baruch Hu is bekas. We are getting punished. Kadosh Baruch Hu is showing us Lo Yisrichu. Meilaz HaChazal. Make a bracha Toiv HaMeitiv. What's the pshat, not Toiv HaMeitiv? Listen to what the Meshech Chochmah says. Meshech Chochmah says two more things. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Meshech Chochmah says that there's a pasuk, Golsa Yehuda. Golsa Yehuda is a pasuk in Eicha. Zok the Medrash and Golsa Yehuda that Yidden go to Golis, Goyim don't go to Golis. In fact, the Meshech Chochmah, Goyim don't go to Golis. What do you mean Goyim don't go? There's never been a war where one country's been victorious and set the whole country packing. What do you mean Goyim don't go to Golis? It's like the Meshech Chochmah, unbelievable. When a Yid goes to Golis and a Goy goes to Golis, here's an Afkamina. I just read an article that when they freed I think it was the French soldiers who were in, I don't remember which country it was, maybe Austria, I don't remember what, at the end of the war, they freed POWs that were in a foreign country. So you know what happens when they're in a foreign country? They want to go to the bakery, they can eat. They want to go to a restaurant, they can eat. They can eat, they can drink. They want to get married, they can get married. What happens to a Yid when he's in a foreign country? He can't eat, he can't drink, he can't marry anybody. Goes to Yehuda. Yidden go to Golis. Nobody else goes to Golis. The real meaning of Golis, nobody else goes to Golis. Even if they throw somebody into a different country somewhere, he's not in Golis the same way Yid's in Golis. That's the first thing. Unbelievable. The second thing is, I'm there with you. Zok the Meshech Chochmah, I'm there with you. Umamela, since I'm there with you. Hatoiv HaMeitiv is a bracha that's on the same national level as the bracha on the Mon, and the bracha on Eretz Yisrael, and the bracha on the Beis HaMikdash, and the bracha on Yerushalayim. You know why? Because when Klal Yisrael will ever be in Golus, which has happened for the last 2,000 years, we have to know that we are with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu hasn't left us even in Golus. Toiv HaMeitiv L'Koil. L'Koil means for everybody forever. That's the pshat in Chazal. Toiv HaMeitiv L'Koil. I don't believe everybody would have the same feeling, but I mentioned before I flew to LA. I flew for a friend's bar mitzvah. I usually don't do that, but a special circumstance, I flew to LA. I flew on a Wednesday night. Got in very late. Thursday night is Lag Boimer. Meron. I was supposed to have a day off before the bar mitzvah. Going to try to relax a little, learn by myself and no phone calls, and the phone calls started coming in. 3 boys from the shul were in Meron. Baruch Hashem, they didn't get hurt. They saw what happened. We all know. The next morning, I'm davening, as I've said to you sometimes, I'm davening Vasikin alone at the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean. And when I'm able to do this, nobody's there. Nobody's there. I love to be able to look. You don't get to do this, especially not in the city. I like to be able to look somewhere and I see nothing created by man. Nothing created by man. All I could see was the water and the sky. Nothing man-made. Not a boat. Nothing. Nothing man-made. You look at the Bayrei. You're looking at the Bayrei. Here's the Bayrei. You know the bracha Oisam Aisav Reishis. I had a shaila, and when you see the ocean, what bracha do you make? I'll say, I'm a god, Oisam Aisav Reishis. Oisam Aisav Reishis, what the Levush says, the Mishabur brings down Oisam Aisav Reishis means that this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in Aisav Reishis and hasn't changed. I'm seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Aisav Reishis. Sometimes you can look at the sky and maybe not see a plane if you're but to go somewhere where all you see is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you don't see anything man-made. And I felt at that moment, I never had this feeling before. I felt at that moment that I got a patch from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I got a patch. But I felt, it's funny, I don't know, it's brought down like this in Sforim. I felt the closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He patched us. He patched us. But he patched us. He's our Father. He has a shaykhus to us. He wants to make us better. He didn't give up on us. It's a hard feeling to feel. It's a hard feeling to feel. Okay, everybody, so let's talk a little for a second. We're in Golus. We're in Golus. In any book you read the books about the Nazis, Yamach Shemam, about the communists, Yamach Shemam, first thing they do is they mock us. They mock us. You Jews are crazy. You're crazy. They've been doing this since Har Sinai. They've been doing this. You're crazy people. What are you doing over here with these halachas that make no sense? What's with you Jews? We have stood the test and we said, Gzerim lefonai, ein rishus lahar acharav. That's it. Then they say, where's your God? You read it, every book. They mocked us. Where's your God? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And we know, I'm not coming here to judge anybody. I'm born in America. My parents were born in America. My grandparents lived in America. My great-grandparents lived in America. My great-great-grandparents were in America. My great-great-grandfather was in America. Where's God right now? God's here. How do I know that? How do I know that? Hatoiv HaMeitiv. That's our Messiah. That's number one. That's the first Rashi. Number two, Hashem's here. Hatoiv HaMeitiv. Hatoiv HaMeitiv. We have a Vad. I've spoken about it before. We try to make a Kabbalah on the Vad. Now, we haven't caught on yet. When we bench, we should think that when we say Hatoiv HaMeitiv, it means Hashem is with us. It's Hatoiv HaMeitiv. It's an unbelievable bracha. Hashem is with us. Okay. Now, CNN, they tell me, I did not see this. They told me CNN. They had an interview with an Arab, Yamach Shemoy. Remember, we've gone through a lot. Nobody's forgotten it, right? We all know Meron, stolen, Florida. And don't forget, in between all that, there was a war. And don't forget, that was all preceded by Corona. They interviewed an Arab. They said to the Arab, it was a friendly interview. How do you explain that you shot up thousands of rockets, whatever the number was? Every Yid who was killed is a oil mullah. But relatively speaking, how do you explain it? You missed all the population centers. Well, what's the pshat? This is what they asked the Arab. You know what he answered? The Jewish God protected them. The Jewish God protected them. There's no other pshat. There's no other pshat. They're becoming more sophisticated. They knew they wanted to overwhelm the Iron Dome. Stop talking Iron Dome. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu running the world. I don't know if it's possible to say, who am I to say? I'm not touching up anything. I'm not one word of touching up anything. I'm wondering though, are we allowed to say in the middle of the war that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed us a hug? Are we allowed to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed us a hug? Hatoiv HaMeitiv was a bracha made up in the middle of killing hundreds of thousands of Yidden. And the body, we made a bracha, Hatoiv HaMeitiv, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us all the time. We can't forget that. Okay, these are two of the timers. Now we have one third timer. Third timer. Zok the girl like this. Okay, Jews, you know what? I respect you. I respect you. Obedience. Givaldik. You want to not eat this? You want to keep paraduma? You want to keep shatnez? You want to do chalitza? I respect it. I respect it. Where's your God? I believe you. Your God's with you. Whatever you believe, I admire you. Believe in God. You know what? I like you so much. Let's have a drink together. Let's have a drink together. I got a nice bottle of wine. Let's have a drink together. My wife is going to make a pie. All ingredients are kosher. Come on. I'm a neighbor, you're a neighbor, you work with me, I work with you. Let's have a drink together. Sagt der Meshech Chochma, Hatoy v'ameitiv is a bracha made on wine. Why wine? Because Chazal said we can't have their wine. Chazal said we can't have their wine, we can't have wine with them. Sagt der Meshech Chochma, sagt Haman, sagt Haman, Achashverosh, these Jews. You touch their wine, they won't drink it. A fly falls into the wine, they will drink it. Medrash. That was about the time that the Gzeira was made, just about that time, a little earlier than Haman. Haman says to Achashverosh, these are the Jews. My brother's here. One of our father, Shalom's best friends. Big askin, a wealthy man, about tzedakah. His colleagues at work, they liked him. His customers, his clients, whatever, they liked him. So they wanted to give him a meal. They could never give him a meal. They know he keeps kosher. So whatever they did, they got a steak, must have been from Borough Park, and they brought it out to where he was in Maine, wherever his business was. And they brought out the steak, raw, and they showed him the plumber. Here's the steak. And now we're going to take it and put it in our grill and make it for you. He said that was one of the hardest times in his life. Here, they slept to get a steak. I can't eat it. Why can't you eat it? I said over this mice in shul, so somebody comes up to me and says to me like this. He's a tichtiger guy. He's in computers, and he's a designer of. So he had a baby, and I think he was leaving at the same time, and all his coworkers liked him. So they made up, said by lunch, they surprised him, and they knew he ate kosher, so they bought entenmann's. Okay, it's not Chol V'Shol, he's not Makbul Chol V'Shol. He walks into the dining room, a ganze table, every single type of entenmann's you can have. Look, covered your daughter, a goodbye party, you're leaving, whatever, both of them, I don't remember whichever one it was. No, it was Chol Hamoed Pesach. He just told me the Maisa. He just told me the Maisa, Chol Hamoed Pesach. Chazal said, even if he says, fine, I'm with you. I'm with you. And even if he says, where's God? I'm with you. Okay, good, so now let's be friends. Let's be friends. It's unbelievable. Hatoy v'ameitiv, a bracha that we say every time we bench. A toiv v'ameitiv. Maybe it's a schus this oilam, it's schus the shul, it's schus everybody. A toiv v'ameitiv. It's a bracha in benching. What's it doing there? It's doing there because every time a yid benches, a yid should say, wherever I'm benching, Timbuktu, on a plane, in Alaska, wherever I'm benching, a toiv v'ameitiv, Hashem is with us. And I'm talking different than the person sitting next to me. And when the world changes at the pace that the world is changing, and it's so hard to hold on to our seats. And maybe for us, maybe those of us who are a little older, we don't like change anyway, so maybe it's not so hard for us. But our children and our grandchildren, Tati, Abba, Daddy, what is this? Why are people doing this? Why can't I do this? Go to LaGuardia Airport, $8 billion. Go see the signs in the airport, where they're directing you to go to. Get off the plane, the first sign, as big as this wall over here. Rabbi Say, we have to make walls. Walls. First wall has to say, Gzeira him ilafonai, mein rishus lahachareh. That's it, finished, that's who we are. I'm not suggesting anybody paint it on one of the walls in their house. We don't do that. But our children should know. That's it. It doesn't make any... I can't understand it. You can't explain it to me. Why can't I have a tattoo? Because Hashem said so. Not like 50, 60, 80 years ago, my mother said, nobody ever explained anything to her. This is an explanation. This is an explanation. I'm not telling you what the pshat and tattoos are. I'm telling you what the pshat and the Jew is. The pshat and the Jew is that if Hashem said it, that's what we do. Where's HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He's with us. I don't understand what happened. How can you understand buildings falling down? How can you understand when Yidden are involved in doing a mitzvah, a ma'aseh kedusha? How can you understand it? Who can explain it? Lag Boimer, Erev Shavuos, stolen Rebbe was so makbid, everything should be safe. Who can understand it? $9,000 soldiers are sitting at the border for days. You know what changes? When a guy comes to me and says to me, my nephew is there. My nephew, a kid who grew up in the shul, he's sitting there. He's sitting in Gaza. He's sitting there. Whenever I see a soldier in Eretz Yisrael, and I tell you the truth, I expanded it. Whenever I see a policeman in America, I say thank you for serving. We have a police car that sits in front of the shul. We have like 12 shuls on 2 blocks. I tell everybody in shul every Shabbos, go outside, say thank you to the police officer. You should know that in Chicago, the chief of police of the entire city, a cop told me. He said, when the cops need chizuk, cops need chizuk. They need chizuk. They're not in a great job. They may like to do it, to serve, but what the cop said? Go to West Rogers Park, that's where we live, go to West Rogers, roll down your window, and you'll see people will wave to you. They'll say thank you, maybe they'll give you some donuts, and go there for an afternoon and then come back. That's what that's what they do. See people, soldiers, the American Army, thank you for serving. On planes, thank you for serving. Go to Eretz Yisrael. I saw a 19-year-old kid once at Eretz Yisrael. Every other year we go to Eretz Yisrael to learn for a week. So I'm a cowboy at heart. So I see this kid, he's 19, he's 20. I said, how much does your gear weigh? How much gear? How much do we weigh? 75 pounds. They walk around with 75 pounds of gear. Who knows what he has on him? He doesn't deserve the Yashikoyach. Thank you. Kadosh Baruch Hu is with us in all the tzoros. We understand the tzoros? Of course we don't understand the tzoros. And then there are gzeiros. There's a third wall. One wall is Gerim Lefanai. One wall is HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us. Then there's a third wall. And the third wall is we stay away. We stay away. Even though they're doing it, we stay away. It's impossible to live without the internet. I understand. Our internet doesn't have to be the same as their internet. It doesn't have to be the same. Doesn't have to be the same. I don't want to get into a whole internet shmooze here. I'm just saying one thing. It doesn't have to be the same. Doesn't have to be the same. You live in New Jersey and New York. Or you live in New York and maybe some people live in New Jersey. Some people here. You're 5 years behind us. We're ahead of you. Chicago is ahead of New York. What could Chicago be ahead of New York in? Because 5 years ago in Chicago, in Illinois, they matted marijuana. And they just matted marijuana by you. What's wrong with marijuana? Marijuana is good. Marijuana is geschmack. Marijuana makes me feel well. I'm here for, as I mentioned, we had a simcha in Baltimore. So somebody called me up from Chicago. He told me he was just driving down the highway with his kids. Big sign. Big sign. Okay, I'm not into this anymore, but I used to be into it, like everybody else used to be into it. I'll admit I used to be into it. Ron Sandberg was a big baseball player, I think for the Chicago Cubs. I'm not sure for who. There's a big billboard now on one of the main highways in Chicago. My life is better because I'm using marijuana. What does that do to a little kid in a car? 2 eyes. Who knows who Ron Sandberg is because he follows the Cubs. What does it do to him? What's it do? Now I'm going to say again, we don't know about this. So what are you talking about it for? Our kids don't know about marijuana. If there are children here who never heard of marijuana, ma toiva ma noam. Keep it that way. That means you have great walls. Great walls. Here's a little kid. Tati, what is going on here? He has a tattoo. I don't know what a relief area is. I don't know what a gender neutral is. What is going on here? What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? They told me we're going to have a half the olim because everybody's on Zoom. That's what they told me. I shouldn't be disappointed. I figured there's going to be 10 people there. And it's even, for many people, it's still a day off when people are here. Yirgun Shuri Torah is doing one of the things we have to do. I don't know how many people are watching this all over. I don't know. You're going to tell me they're watching on the internet. I understand the kashas. All the kashas are good. All the kashas are good. But me, Kamcha Yisrael, how many people in the world at 10 to 10 are listening to somebody talk? Come on, how many people in the world are doing this? And what's the person telling them? You shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. Well, who's going to ever come out such a thing? I'm dancing here, I'm singing here. What's going on here? We're not even serving drinks, nothing. People are coming here to hear Torah. It's unbelievable. I want to say one more thing. I'm into this right now. I'm going to push this. I'll push this. You'll see what you can do. I want everybody in this room, you can blame me, go to your Rav and tell your Rav, I want a Vad. Once a week or once every other week, I want a Vad. I want to come together and I want you to give me chizuk. I go to work all day, all I see, all I hear, all I do, all the people tell me about, last night I had this marijuana and this and that. I need help. And if I don't need it yet, I will need it. Where's the chizuk? Ask the Rav. I want to have a Vad. What's a Vad? I'll tell you what a Vad is. This is a Vad. This is my Kabbalah I was zeicher to get from the Mashiach. And Kelm, there was a Vad. We went into a room. It was before the term group therapy. We went into a room, and there was a Kabbalah that everybody was makabel. Somebody said some type of machshava in Musar, and then there was a Kabbalah. We're being makabel. We have a Kabbalah. I'm going to tell you right now, we have a Kabbalah. I have about 4 different Vadim. We have a Kabbalah. You know what a Kabbalah is? It's apropos right now. Here's a Kabbalah. Kabbalah is that when you go upstairs, most people, if you have a house, and you go upstairs, I'll tell you why Badafkin saying go upstairs, you get to the top step, sit down. One of the members of the Vad is here. Sit down on the top step. In 5 seconds, say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's no Beis HaMikdash. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's no Yerushalayim, the way it's supposed to be. You know what that is? That means you're talking to your tati, to your abba, to your daddy, and you're saying, I have a yachas with you. And I feel, we have a relationship. We have a relationship. And I feel that, I feel for you. I just read the story again of Yeshurun Chaim Sonnenfeld. The head of the British Empire, who was representing the British Empire after getting settled in Yerushalayim, went to see all the heads of all the religions, and the last step was to Yeshurun Chaim Sonnenfeld. Yeshurun Chaim Sonnenfeld's house, Batei Magze, 10 steps down, mold on the walls, and this person had to bend. He was a yid. Had to bend his head to go in. And he goes in and he looks around, and he offered him a seat. This Namaisa. He offered him a seat. It was a wicker chair. You know, a wicker chair has little holes in it. And he sat down, and he broke the chair. Fell right to the ground. So Rabbi Chaim Sonnenfeld says, the pshat is, like Yaakov Avinu, all the rocks said we wanted to come together, he should put his head, all the holes come together also. They wanted all the holes come together. So he mollified him a little, he gets up, they open another chair, he says no. And then he says to Yeshurun Sonnenfeld, you couldn't find, you're living in such an elaborate house? So Yeshurun Sonnenfeld takes him to the window, the only window. Churban Bayis, from the window. Churban Bayis, from the window. God's house looks like that. My house doesn't look better. He said he felt that a prophet was talking to him. I'm not even talking about that madrega. I'm talking about the simple madrega. Who are we? We are the children of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and we are Banim Lamokim. We are the Banim Lamokim. We're the people who say, we're going weiter. And we're the people who say in the middle of all the problems, in the middle of everything, and we're the people who say, after you offer me the bottle of wine, no thanks. After you offer me the pie, no thanks. I'll be nice to you. I'll respect you. I won't take a dime from you. It doesn't belong to me, as we've spoken about in the past. But, no thanks on the wine. No thanks on the cake. No thanks on the internet. No thanks on the tattoos. And Shmuley has to hear that. And Sorla has to hear that. And Yankala has to hear that. And Danny has to hear that. And every one of our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren have to hear that. We say Havdalah, Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. Bein Yisrael Amim. We say this every single Motzei Shabbos. We start the new week. We're going to go to work. Bein Yisrael Amim. Bein Yisrael Amim. Every day. Hivdi lanu min atoyim min osan lanu toiras emes. Hivdi lanu min atoyim. You separated us. That's who we want to be. We're separate. We may live in this world, but we have a completely different existence. A completely different existence. And that's our job. That's our job. How do you remain sane when the world is going down the drain? By being connected to the Beirei. I don't like the program. Where are you? Hatoy v'hametiv. It's so gishmak. I went to work, he offered me marijuana for free. I live in New Jersey, it's mutter. I live in New York, it's mutter. I'm controlling myself, Rabbi, so I have a lot to say about this. A lot. The only thing I want to hint to is, if somebody offers you marijuana who's wearing a yarmulke and may even have payers, it's the same answer. No. We have no shaykhs. You want to hear Psak Halacha? Dina Machusa Dina. Is it mutter to sell marijuana? Of course it's mutter to sell marijuana. La Halacha, are you allowed to sell marijuana? My humble opinion? Absolutely no. Can you sell marijuana to a non-Jew? My humble opinion? Absolutely no. I believe Rav Moshe's tshuva about marijuana applies to non-Jews as well. We live in a world. We live in a world. There's a Beirei. We want all of mankind to recognize that. I'm not saying to go on a tshuva movement over here, but we want everybody to understand there's a Beirei. Our job is to live on a different level, a higher level, with different types of walls. We should all be zeicha. Eigen Shuri Torah should be zeicha. And we should all be zeicha together. Not to allow these things in. Keep them out. Keep them out. They don't belong in our homes. And if we're able to keep them out, no guarantees in life. But it's a way to secure our children and our Einiklach and our Ir Einiklach, that they should have a yachas with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should have a yachas with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should all be zeicher, Rabbi Zev, Mekadosh Shem Shemayim, Barabim. I thank you for the opportunity. Hatzlacha, Rabbi. Good night.
Shem Eigen Shuri Torah, Mrs. Boston, like to big Yeshurun, Rav Cohen for the very inspiring drosha. Rabbi say, you could have a chelek in helping the world stay sane and helping saving us from going down the drain by sponsoring one of their many shiurim of Eigen Shuri Torah and be mechazik the tzibur in staying sane and in be mechazik in Torah and avoda mils chasodim. Call Eigen Shuri Torah 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. We'd like to give a big yeshurun to Mr. and Mrs. David Dax for sponsoring tonight's shir. Yeshurun to everyone for coming. V'chananya ben HaKadosh HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zakes es Yisrael l'figure Hebrew Torah u'mitzvah shneimar l'nei chofetz u'man tzidkoi yagdol Torah v'yadeh.